Hi, this is Darren Fredrickson. I put together 10 tips for successful surveillance that have helped me over the last 2 decades. I hope they help you. So without further ado, let's get to them. Tip number 1, do your homework. Operational planning. This, I believe, is the most important phase of any surveillance operation. Number 1, become familiar with all aspects of the case. This means get as much intelligence and information as you can from your client. Number 2, clarify the objectives of the surveillance. What is your end game? What is the client's end game? You need to figure that out so that you know what evidence to obtain, when to take action, when not to take action. Number 3, under tip number 1, do a virtual scout of the area. That means go online and look at all the mappings, Google, Bing, Google Street View, do a virtual scout of the area. And keep in mind that even if it's static or mobile surveillance, knowing the layout of the neighborhoods can be very important. Egress, ingress, routes of travel. Determine what kind of equipment and resources you're going to need to be successful in this surveillance. Tip number 2, mental attitude. I've worked with a lot of investigators over the years, and what I've found is that negativity is contagious. Negativity is a more powerful force than positive. It takes more energy to smile than it does to frown, right? So your mental attitude is very powerful, and if you think success, most likely you will achieve success. So that's something that you got to consider, that when you go out into the field, think success, don't think failure. Number 3, have a pretext. Pretext meaning, why are you doing what you're doing mentally? It's easier to come up with a reason why you're in a neighborhood or a commercial area doing what you're doing, rather than have a neighbor, or worse yet, your subject, approach you and ask what you're doing, confront you. Are you following me? You better have a reasonable explanation rather than just ignoring them, telling them to get lost, or basically burning out of the neighborhood. Would be suspicious behavior. So think about what you're doing, why you're there, and also that projects. If you think I'm an investigator and I'm driving through a neighborhood, then that is going to emanate from you and project from you. So if you're projecting, I'm a real estate investor, that's what I'm doing in this neighborhood, or I work for a phone company, or I'm testing phones, whatever your reason is, keep that in mind. Number 4, positioning on static surveillance. Many surveillances are a prelude to a moving surveillance. So your positioning on trying to predict the route your subject is going to take out of a neighborhood, very, very important. I know some investigators just focus on getting video at the home and them doing yard work. In my experience, I found where I get more video away from home, so a lot of times I don't get that direct eye on the home. Now, if the client wants that, then that's great. Then set up where you can observe the subject. Even though I might have a long eye, if I see the subject out and I see that, yeah, they're going to start partaking in yard work or lifting heavy objects, then I'll move in and try to get video. But being in too tight when it's not necessary just exposes yourself, and you can be compromised a lot sooner. So think about your positioning. 5, assessing your subject's driving behavior early. Been on surveillance, you're in a good position, subject leaves, you've moved into a mobile surveillance. Assess how your subject is driving early on, so then you need to know, should I stay tight, should I stay loose, do they run yellows or reds, do they cut through parking lots, is their head on a swivel and they're looking around, they're real vigilant, or is it just they're very passive and oblivious to anything going on around them? As soon as you determine your driver's habits, really helps out on trying to stay with your subject and predicting what they're going to do with given situations. Do they hold the speed limit and just hold it nice and tight right on? A lot of times the criminals that I followed over the years, they obey the traffic laws. just because they have warrants, they're wanted, they're on drugs, they're holding drugs, so they drive somewhat conservatively, and they're somewhat easier to hold. All right, so you've done a successful positioning on a static surveillance. You're doing a successful mobile surveillance. And now tip number 6. Don't give your subject too much credit. Don't overestimate their abilities on detecting you. A lot of times, especially in solo surveillances, you are really concerned about the subject, and are they trying to identify you? Are they doing counter surveillance? Are they pulling over? And you think, oh, they're looking for me, but in fact they're lost. So a lot of investigators become very paranoid, and they give their subjects too much credit, and then they stay too far away and they end up losing their subject. If you've been sitting on surveillance, static surveillance for 4, 5, 6 hours or longer, and then you lose your subject within, a lot of times it's 30 seconds or a couple minutes, just because you think they're looking for me, then you've wasted a lot of time, and now they're out and they're probably doing things that maybe you could get good video on, whether it's a civil case or a criminal case. So again, don't give them too much credit. Stay tight, but if you see behavior that looks like they're becoming a little bit more vigilant, then back off a little bit, and we'll talk about that in a second. We're up to 7. Do you stay tight? Do you stay loose? Do you stay engaged, or do you disengage? Let's say your subject has spotted you for some reason. Maybe it was just an accident, or maybe they've taken evasive moves, and you had to take those same moves with them to hold them, and now you feel like there's a little bit of the light's on you, the spotlight's on you. Do you engage or do you disengage? Well, that depends on the objectives of the case, depends on the client a lot of times. Number one rule of thumb, though, is if you have been compromised or you think things are not going very well, contact the client and find out what they want you to do, rather than waste a whole nother day or 2 or 3 days being compromised and not informing the client of it. When do I engage or disengage? I stay engaged when I can hold the client for a while, even though I've been maybe exposed and they don't seem to be reacting any differently. When do I disengage? When there's been a compromise and maybe they've looked at my vehicle, they looked at me, and I can tell, I can sense that I don't want to be spotted again, so I'll give them a lot of room. So at that point, I might not necessarily disengage, but I really back off quite a bit, give them a lot of room, and in that situation, I'll let them go rather than try to stick with them after there's been an exposure. Tip number 8, eye contact. Don't make eye contact with your subject, ever, if you can avoid it. Even when you're watching them through binoculars, or you're watching them from a vehicle or a static or moving surveillance, try not to focus on their eyes. What I do and try to make a conscious effort is just to watch the neck and the head area, use my peripheral vision. I work a lot of organized retail crime cases privately, and so you're in a store, you're close with them on foot, and in a store you have to watch them commit a theft. As a matter of fact, there's many elements that you have to achieve in order to have a prosecutable case. So you have to observe, you have to watch, and it's a challenge when you can't make eye contact, or you can't not look at in the subject's direction. We're almost done. 9. What's your objective? Stay on your objective. It's so easy to become diverted, especially in law enforcement surveillances, where you're watching one criminal and the criminal hooks up with another criminal, and you're like, should we go with this criminal or stay with this criminal? Or in drug investigation surveillances, you're watching a drug dealer, a pager dealer, as they called them in the old days. Now they do deliveries, and all of a sudden there's a hookup, and you're like, that looks like the supplier for my heroin dealer or my mobile dealer. Do we go with the supplier? Maybe you should. Nothing wrong with changing your objective if you think this is going to be better in the long run. Just don't lose track of what your objective is, because if you do, then the evidence that you need to fulfill your objective change, whether it's civilly or criminally. If you lose sight of your objective, you're not getting the evidence you need to support your case to go forward. Tip number 10, enjoy it. Have fun. Make it a challenge. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. Hopefully the good days outweigh the bad days. If you're having more bad days than good days, you need to look at your tactics and your techniques and figure out, am I doing something that is wrong? Am I making the same mistakes? And sometimes you need more education, more learning. Sometimes you just need more experience, but make sure that you at least have the fundamentals of doing physical surveillance so that you can be successful in your career. Doing surveillance day in, day out, daytime, nighttime, weekends, it can drain your body, it can tap your mental stamina, but ultimately this is a career that you should enjoy. If you don't enjoy the game anymore, you're getting too old, you don't have the stamina, or it's just not fun anymore, then don't do it anymore. I've heard it said that it's a young person's game. I'm not exactly a young spring chicken anymore. I've been doing this for 25 years. I'm still doing it every week, including weekends. So why do I do it? I have a passion for it. I love it. Surveillance has been my life. It's a game to me, and I enjoy it and I have fun. Doesn't mean I don't get tired out, and sometimes I need to recharge. Then if that's the case, then you just gotta take some time off, cool down, and trudge forward. I hope these tips have helped you, and again, these are not like the top 10 most crucial things, but these are the 10 things that have made me successful over many years, and this is kind of a high level look at it. There's definitely a lot more behind the scenes under each one of these 10 points that we're going to get into as we go forward with these videos. So have a great day, be safe.